We're all familiar with Charles Dickens' classic story, A Christmas Carol, and we all know about the ghosts that come to haunt him on Christmas Eve. But that story is rooted in an ancient superstition that before the new year, ghosts are free to rise up out of their graves and wander about on the earth. In fact, in olden days, people would believe that those ghosts, the ghosts of their ancestors, might come into their homes that night, and for that reason, people would often leave food and drink for the ghosts to feast and make merry. But it was stranger than that, for the ghosts had their own secret ceremonies. They would gather together in deserted churchyards on Christmas Eve. To watch them was somewhat dangerous because the ghosts were always eager to have the living join them in their ghostly realm. And as the ghosts wandered about in the night, they formed long, tattered processions. Trailing behind them were the fetches, the doubles of the people who were doomed to die in the coming year. These lingered behind the rest, as if hoping to see the companions that would soon be joining them. This would seem to be a good reason to avoid the churches in the dark hours while good Christians slept in their beds. And yet, there were always those who were willing to brave those churchyards in search of forbidden knowledge. And one of these was a parish priest in Lancashire by the name of Father Martin. He was a very learned man. He had studied the secrets of the stars, and he knew all about the magic properties of certain plants. However, he did this not so much out of a love for science, but more because he felt knowledge was power. And one day he became just obsessed with the desire to see those ghost fetches, to find out who was going to die in the coming year. Oh, he knew that it was a somewhat dangerous thing to watch the ghost fetches, but he was sure he knew enough about magic plants to protect himself. For instance, he knew that St. John's wort could ward off ghosts, and he knew that the bay leaf, which was a herb of the sun, could be a great protection against the devil and darkness. Even the holly, with its red berries, was quite a powerful talisman against evil. Now, Father Martin was a somewhat solitary figure. His only companion was an old herb doctor called Abraham. In fact, it was Abraham that had taught him pretty much everything he knew. And so one night on Christmas Eve, after the Christmas service, when the parishioners had gone off to bed, Father Martin asked old Abraham if he would like to come down to the churchyard to watch as those ghosts wandered in the night, to see the ghost fetches, those doubles of the people that were going to die. Old Abraham agreed most readily. And so just before midnight, the two men crept down through the silent village to the little churchyard. The place was deserted. No ghosts wandered there yet. On the church altar, a single taper burned brightly. Outside, the moon shone silver on stone and branch. The two men settled themselves into the shadows, and they wrapped their cloaks tightly around them. They had come armed with their protective plants. and they felt ready to face the ghost fetches of the night. The moments roll by slowly. So quiet was the night that even the rustling of small animals that hunted at night could be heard clearly. From behind the wall where the forest began, an owl hooted. The wind rose and sighed in the tree branches. And then somewhere in the distance, a bell began to toll. At the sound, movement began in the churchyard. At first it was only an aimless rustling, like shadows flicked in the wind. But then, a figure glided by. The face was well known to the two men. It was the miller of the town. Behind him came others, the midwife, the schoolmaster, and a farmer. All these shuffled past the watchers on the porch, looking straight ahead, and then disappeared into the shadows. Father Martin leaned back and sighed. His curiosity had been satisfied. And then suddenly he gasped. And as old Abraham later said, he had good reason to, for the last walker in that ghostly company was the ghost of Father Martin himself. The ghost gave a tight smile as it passed the watchers on the porch. This was the man's reward for having meddled with winter magic. He died within the year, having foreseen his own ghost.